Dred Scott v. Sandford, 60 U.S. 393, was a landmark decision of the United States Supreme Court in which the court held that the United States Constitution was not meant to include American citizenship for people of African descent, regardless of whether they were enslaved or free, and so the rights and privileges that the Constitution confers upon American citizens could not apply to them. The decision was made in the case of Dred Scott, an enslaved black man whose owners had taken him from Missouri, which was a slave-holding state, into Illinois and the Wisconsin Territory, which were free areas where slavery was illegal. When his owners later brought him back to Missouri, Scott sued in court for his freedom and claimed that because he had been taken into free U.S. territory, he had automatically been freed and was legally no longer a slave. Scott sued first in Missouri State Court, which ruled that he was still a slave under its law. He then sued in U.S. Federal Court, which ruled against him by deciding that it had to apply Missouri law to the case. He then appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. In March 1857, the Supreme Court issued a 7-2 decision against Dred Scott. In an opinion written by Chief Justice Roger Taney, the court ruled that people of African descent are not included, and were not intended to be included, under the word citizens in the Constitution, and can therefore claim none of the rights and privileges which that instrument provides for and secures to citizens of the United States. Taney supported his ruling with an extended survey of American state and local laws from the time of the Constitution's drafting in 1787 that purported to show that a perpetual and impassable barrier was intended to be erected between the white race and the one which they had reduced to slavery. Because the court ruled that Scott was not an American citizen, he was also not a citizen of any state and, accordingly, could never establish the diversity of citizenship that Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution requires for a U.S. federal court to be able to exercise jurisdiction over a case. After ruling on those issues surrounding Scott, Taney continued further and struck down the entire Missouri Compromise as a limitation on slavery that exceeded the U.S. Congress's constitutional powers. Although Taney and several of the other justices hoped that the decision would permanently settle the slavery controversy, which was increasingly dividing the American public, the decision's effect was the complete opposite. Taney's majority opinion suited the slaveholding states, but was intensely decried in all the other states. The decision inflamed the national debate over slavery and deepened the divide that led ultimately to the Civil War. In 1865, after the Union won the Civil War, the Dred Scott ruling was voided by the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which abolished slavery except as punishment for a crime, and the 14th Amendment, which guaranteed citizenship for all persons born or naturalized in the United States, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The Supreme Court's decision has been widely denounced ever since, both for how overtly racist the decision was and its crucial role in the near destruction of the United States 4 years later. Bernard Schwartz said that it stands first in any list of the worst Supreme Court decisions. Chief Justice Hughes called it the court's greatest self-inflicted wound. Junius P. Rodriguez said that it is universally condemned as the U.S. Supreme Court's worst decision. Historian David Thomas Koenig said that it was, unquestionably, our court's worst decision ever. In the late 1810s, a major political dispute arose over the creation of new American states from the vast territory the United States had acquired from France in 1803 through the Louisiana Purchase. The dispute centered on whether the new states would be free states like the existing northern states, in which slavery would be illegal, or whether they would be slave states like the existing southern states, in which slavery would be legal. The southern states wanted the new states to be slave states in order to enhance their own political and economic power. The northern states wanted the new states to be free states for their own political and economic reasons, as well as their moral concerns over allowing the institution of slavery to expand. In 1820, the U.S. Congress passed an agreement known as the Missouri Compromise that was intended to resolve the dispute. The compromise first admitted Maine into the Union as a free state, then created Missouri out of a portion of the Louisiana Purchase territory and admitted it as a slave state, but at the same time prohibited slavery in the area north of the parallel 36 degrees 30 north, where most of the territory lay. The legal effects of a slave owner taking his slaves from Missouri into the free territory north of the 36 degrees 30 north parallel, as we